The old ruins were silent, the kind of silence that pressed against the ears and made every breath feel heavy. A lone human explorer moved carefully through the broken metal walls, his boots crunching on shattered glass and burned wires. His name was Captain Raynor, a man who had seen too many wars, and now only wanted to search forgotten places for lost truth. But something about these ruins felt different, darker, more alive than the dead ships he had walked before. The air smelled of rust and smoke, even though the fires had died long ago. Every corner seemed to hold a shadow that was too deep, too patient, as if watching him. Raynor's hand rested on the grip of his plasma pistol, his other hand holding a small lantern that gave off a pale blue glow. The walls around him were scratched with marks he did not understand, curved letters of an alien language mixed with long claw lines. It was not the marks that made him uneasy, it was the sound, or rather the absence of it, until it came. A voice, faint and trembling, floated through the corridor like a ghost. "Can I have a dad now, please?" The words were soft, small, the kind of sound that did not belong in a place of death. Raynor froze, his heart slamming in his chest, the lantern trembling in his hand. No soldier, no pirate, no scavenger would say such a thing. It was the voice of a child, lost and hopeless. He followed the sound step by careful step down the narrow passage where broken cables hung like black vines. The whisper came again. "Please, I want a dad." Raynor swallowed hard, his throat dry. Every instinct screamed that it was a trap, that something wanted him to move closer. But the tone of the child was too real, too raw with pain. No machine or trick could copy that kind of sadness. The corridor opened into a wide chamber, the remains of an old prison hall. Cages lined the walls, many broken, garden, oars ripped apart, bones scattered like dust. But in the farthest corner, a cage still stood, rusty bars bent but locked tight. Inside, huddled together, were two figures. Raynor lifted his lantern higher, the light revealing a small alien girl, her skin pale blue, her eyes wide and shining in the darkness. Beside her sat a woman, older, thinner, her face marked with exhaustion and bruises. Both wore chains around their wrists. But the girl leaned forward, her little hands gripping the bars, her eyes never leaving Raynor. "Are you my dad?" she whispered again, voice breaking. "Can I have a dad now, please?" The sound cut through him like a blade. Raynor had faced soldiers, monsters, and machines without fear, but these words made him tremble. He felt something heavy in his chest, something he thought the war had killed long ago. Compassion. He took a slow step closer, the lantern shining on their cage. "Who put you here?" Raynor asked, his voice low. The alien mother raised her head, her voice weak but filled with bitterness. "The Empire. They took us when they found out the truth. They wanted us erased." Raynor frowned. "Erased? Why?" The woman's eyes flicked to her daughter, then back to him. "Because of her. Because she should not exist." The girl reached out again, her small fingers pressing between the bars. Raynor hesitated, his hand just inches away from hers. She whispered once more, so soft he barely heard it. "Please, I just want a dad." His mind raced. If he freed them, he would be branded a traitor, hunted, killed. If he walked away, they would die in the cage, forgotten like the bones around them. He looked at the girl, her eyes too bright, too innocent, too desperate for him to ignore. He looked at the mother, her face filled with both hope and fear, as if she knew what his choice would cost. The silence stretched, the air thick with decision. Reno. R's lantern flickered, casting long shadows across the prison walls. His hand touched the cold bars, and for the first time in years, he felt his heart beat faster, not from fear, but from responsibility. Was he ready to become something more than a survivor, more than a soldier? Could he become the very thing this child begged for? His other hand reached to his belt, pulling out a tool that could cut through locks. The sound of metal meeting metal echoed loudly in the chamber. Raynor knew that with every second, patrols might be drawing closer. Enemies might already know he was here. But still he pressed the cutter against the lock, sparks flying. The girl's eyes widened, filled with hope. The mother's lips parted in disbelief. The lock cracked. The cage groaned. Raynor hesitated, one last thought racing through his mind. If he opened this door, there would be no turning back. His life would no longer be his own. The girl's whisper came one final time, trembling and pure. "Please, be my dad." Raynor's hand pushed the door, the rusty hinges screaming as the cage creaked open, and in that moment he knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The rusty cage door creaked open, its scream echoing through the dark chamber like a warning. The little alien girl gasped, her glowing eyes wide as if the sound itself was freedom. Her mother pulled her close as if fearing this might be a cruel dream that could vanish any second. But Captain Raynor stood firm, cutter still warm in his hand, knowing that once the lock was gone, there was no turning back. The girl reached out again, her tiny hand brushing against his gloved fingers. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with hope. Raynor's chest tightened. He had never asked to be called that, yet the word wrapped around his heart like a chain. The mother looked at him, her voice weak but serious. "Do you understand what you are doing, human? If you help us, you will be hunted by the Empire until your last breath." Raynor met her eyes, tired but sharp. "I have been hunted before. I know the price." Her gaze softened, though sadness still rested deep in her bones. "Then you must know the truth. We are not prisoners because of a crime. We are prisoners because of what my daughter is." Raynor frowned, crouching lower so the lantern lit their faces. "What is she?" The mother shook her head. "Not now. Not here. First we must leave, or their soldiers will find us before the hour ends." The girl tugged at his coat, her chains rattling softly. "Please, take us away." Raynor nodded, cutting the chains with sharp bursts of sparks, the smell of burning metal filling the air. The girl cried out softly as the heavy cuffs fell away, rubbing her bruised wrists. Her mother winced but did not complain as her own chains dropped, her eyes locked on the corridor as if expecting footsteps to appear at any moment. "Stay behind me," Raynor ordered, voice firm, "and keep quiet." He moved out of the chamber, lantern lowered, pistol ready. The alien mother limped slightly, holding her daughter close. The girl, though weak, kept her eyes wide and alert, her small fingers still clutching at Raynor's coat, unwilling to let go. The corridors were colder now. Every shadow seemed sharper. Raynor felt the tension in his spine grow heavier with each step. Then a sudden sound tore through the silence, heavy boots stomping, metallic voices shouting in the alien tongue, the Empire's patrols, closer than he thought. "Hide," Raynor whispered sharply, pushing them into a broken alcove. He pressed his back against the wall, pistol raised, listening. The girl held her breath, her eyes filled with fear. The mother whispered into her ear, calming her in a language Raynor did not understand. 3 armored soldiers passed, their weapons glowing faintly, their helmets shaped like cold skulls. Raynor stayed frozen, his heart steady, waiting. When their shadows faded, he gave a signal with 2 fingers and led the way again. The girl clung tighter, whispering almost to herself, "Please don't leave us, Dad." The words hit him harder than the danger, harder than the guns of the Empire. He had lost comrades, brothers, even his old family during the war. He had promised himself never to carry that weight again, never to feel the pain of protecting someone only to lose them. And yet here was a child, calling to him as if fate had tied them together. They reached the outer halls where the roof had collapsed and stars shone through cracks in the ceiling. Raynor's ship was not far, hidden beyond the ridge of the ruins. But as they stepped into the half-light, a voice boomed behind them. "Stop, traitor!" Raynor spun, pistol raised. 3 more soldiers blocked the path, weapons drawn, their eyes glowing red through helmet slits. The alien mother gasped, pulling her daughter back. Raynor stepped forward, placing himself between them, his gun steady. The leader raised a clawed hand. "You dare break Imperial order. You dare free the cursed child." Raynor's jaw tightened. "She's not cursed. She's a child." The soldier sneered. "She is forbidden. She should not exist. Give her to us and we may let you live." The girl cried out, her voice breaking. "Dad, don't let them take me." Raynor felt his blood surge, every instinct screaming at him. He pulled the trigger. A blue flash cut through the dark, striking the nearest soldier. Chaos erupted, gunfire exploding in the ruin halls, sparks and smoke filling the air. Raynor shouted, "Run!" The mother grabbed her daughter and sprinted toward the exit, chains clinking at their ankles. Raynor fired again and again, his body moving with the skill of years in war. But the soldiers pressed closer, their weapons burning holes in the stone walls. He dove behind cover, his pistol heating in his grip. "Go!" he yelled at them. "My ship is beyond the ridge. I'll hate Bilashur. Hold them back." But the girl screamed, "No, don't leave me, you promised." Her voice carried through the chaos, sharp and desperate. Raynor clenched his teeth, cursing under his breath. He could leave them, save himself, maybe even survive another day. But the sound of her voice, the word "Dad," chained him stronger than any order. He rose from cover, firing with precision, each shot fueled not by duty, but by something deeper. Finally, one soldier fell, then another, the third retreating into the shadows, shouting for reinforcements. Raynor hurried forward, grabbing the mother and girl, pulling them through the broken doors. The night air hit them, cold and sharp, stars burning above like silent witnesses. His ship sat waiting. a dark silhouette against the ridge. Raynor pushed them inside, sealing the hatch, his chest heaving. The girl clung to him, trembling, whispering into his coat, "You saved me, Dad." The mother looked at him with a strange mix of gratitude and sorrow. "You don't understand what you have done," she said softly. "The Empire will never forgive this. They will hunt you to the edge of the galaxy." Raynor started the engines, the rumble shaking the ground. He looked at the girl, her eyes shining with tears and hope. He looked at the mother, weary but alive. And in that moment, he realized the truth. He had made his choice, and it was a dangerous one. But there was no going back. The ship roared to life, its engines trembling like a beast waking from deep sleep. Captain Raynor gripped the controls tightly, his eyes darting across the glowing panels. Beside him, the alien mother held her daughter close, both of them strapped into the narrow passenger seats. Outside the cracked window, the ruins glowed faintly under the light of alien moons, but that glow was broken by shadows of enemy ships moving in. "Hold on," Raynor muttered, pulling the throttle forward. The ship lifted with a groan, dust and broken stones scattering into the night sky. The little girl gasped, pressing her small hands against the glass, watching the ground fall away. For a moment she looked free, but then red beams of light sliced across the darkness, the Empire's patrol craft closing fast. Raynor twisted the ship hard to the left, engines howling, the sudden turn pressing them into their seats. Blasts of energy struck the rocks below, exploding in fire, the shockwaves rattling the hull. "Are we safe?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. Raynor's jaw tightened. "Not yet. Stay down." The Empire's fighters were small and fast, built like daggers cutting through the void. 3 of them broke off, circling like predators, firing bursts of plasma. The ship shook violently as one beam grazed the wing, sparks flashing across the cabin. The mother covered her daughter, whispering something in her own tongue. A prayer, perhaps. Raynor flipped a switch. The ship's old guns came online with a low hum. "Let's see if you still bite," he muttered, pulling the triggers. Twin bursts of blue fire spat from the ship. One enemy fighter spun out, flames tearing across its hull before it vanished into the dark. The girl cheered, her fear momentarily replaced by excitement. "Dad, you hit them!" Raynor almost smiled, but the moment was cut short as 2 more fighters closed in, their shots hammered against the shield, alarms screaming inside the cabin. "Shields failing," the computer droned in a flat voice. Raynor cursed under his breath, slamming the controls, diving the ship into the asteroid field ahead. The asteroids loomed like giants in the dark, tumbling slowly, each one a mountain of stone and ice. Raynor wove the ship between them, the hull scraping close enough for sparks to light the glass. The Empire fighters followed, their lights darting in and out of shadow. Every second felt like a blade on his neck. One wrong move and they would be crew, shed or torn apart. The girl gripped the edge of her seat, her small voice shaking. "Dad, they're still behind us." Raynor's eyes burned with focus, sweat dripping down his face. "Then we'll make them regret it." A sharp turn, a burst of fire from the ship's guns, an asteroid cracked apart, sending shards spinning into the path of a fighter. It slammed into the debris, bursting into flames, the wreck scattering like a dying star. But the last fighter remained, weaving through the chaos with relentless speed. It fired again, a beam tearing through the rear shields, the cabin filled with sparks and the smell of burning metal. The mother shouted, "We cannot take much more!" Raynor gritted his teeth, scanning the controls for options, but the system was failing. Then it happened. The little girl stood, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "Sit down," Raynor barked, but she raised her hands toward the glass. The fighter outside lined up its guns, ready to fire, and then, impossibly, its shots curved away, bending like streams of light twisting in the void. The pilot inside screamed as his ship spun out of control, smashing into a drifting rock, exploding in silence. Raynor stared, his hands frozen on the controls. The girl lowered her hands slowly, her glow fading, her small body shaking. The mother held her close, whispering, "I told you not to use it." Raynor turned sharply. "What was that? What did she just do?" The mother's eyes were filled with both shame and pride. "She is not only my daughter. She carries power from both our kinds, power the Empire fears. That is why they locked us away." Raynor looked at the girl, still trembling in her mother's arms. "And if she can do that, they will never stop chasing her." The mother nodded slowly. "Yes, that is why she needs you, why she needs a protector." Raynor turned back to the controls, his heart heavy. He had thought this was only about saving 2 prisoners, but now he realized it was something far greater. The girl was not just innocent, she was dangerous, powerful, and perhaps the key to something bigger than he could imagine. And yet when she looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. He only saw a child begging not to be abandoned. He pulled a lever, the ship's jump drive roaring to life. The stars outside blurred, stretched, then vanished into the swirling tunnel of hyperspace. For a moment, silence filled the cabin, broken only by the steady hum of the engines. The girl whispered, her head resting against his arm. "Thank you, Dad." Raynor exhaled slowly, his hands trembling on the controls. He had made the dangerous choice to free them, and now he was bound to a journey that could change the galaxy. The Empire would never forgive him. Their warships would come. Their hunters would never rest. But when he looked at the child clinging to him, he knew one thing. He would fight. He would run. He would bleed if he had to, because for the first time in years, he had something worth protecting. And so, with stars rushing past the window, the escape had only just begun. The ship floated in hyperspace. The stars outside stretched into endless lines of light. Inside, the cabin was quiet except for the hum of the engines, a sound steady and almost comforting. Captain Raynor leaned back in his seat, his eyes heavy from battle, but his mind too restless to rest. Behind him, the alien mother sat with her daughter curled against her chest, the little girl breathing softly, already asleep. Raynor studied them for a moment, the girl's tiny hands still clutching her mother's clothes as if she feared the world might take her away. The mother's gaze met his, tired but sharp, filled with thoughts she had not yet spoken. Finally, Raynor broke the silence. "You said the Empire locked you away because of her. I need to know why. If I'm going to protect you, I need the truth." The moth. Ear sighed, her fingers brushing her daughter's hair. "Her name is Lyra," she said softly, "and she is not like other children." Raynor leaned forward, his voice firm. "What do you mean?" The mother looked down, her words slow and heavy. "Because she is half human, half alien, a child that was never supposed to be born." Raynor's eyes widened, shock running through him. "A human father," he whispered. The mother nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, a soldier, like you. He was brave, foolish, and kind. He found me when I was hunted. He saved me when others would have turned away, and in the darkness of war, we found each other." Her eyes grew wet, her voice breaking. "He loved us, but the Empire found him. They killed him before Lyra was even born." Raynor felt the weight of her words pressing against his chest like stone. He had seen love ripped apart by war. He had seen families burned to ash, but to hear it here from this woman gave the war a face he could not ignore. "And the Empire," he asked quietly, "why imprison her?" The mother's voice grew bitter. "Because she is proof that humans and my kind are not so different, proof that peace is possible, but they do not want peace. They want control. They want to erase any hope that could challenge them." Raynor looked at Lyra, sleeping so peacefully, her glow faint in the dim light. "She called me Dad," he said, almost to himself. The mother's eyes softened. She never knew her father. She only knew the stories I told her in whispers through the bars of that cage. She dreamed of him every night. She dreamed that one day he would come back. But when she saw you, she felt something that reminded her of the man she never met. The words cut deep. Raynor clenched his fists, torn between sorrow and guilt. He was not that man. He could never replace him. Yet the girl's eyes had chosen him, and there was no way to undo that. He asked quietly, "Do you want me to leave you somewhere safe? A colony maybe, a hidden world?" The mother shook her head slowly. "There is no safe place. Not for her. Not while the Empire hunts us. They will never stop. Not until she is gone, or hidden forever." Raynor's chest burned with anger. The thought of soldiers hunting a child made his blood boil. "I won't let them take her," he said, his voice like steel. The mother studied him, searching his face. "You don't even know her power. You don't know what danger she brings." Raynor's eyes narrowed. "Then tell me." The mother looked down at Lyra again, brushing her cheek gently. "When she was born, the Empire already knew she was different. Her blood carried both human strength and alien connection. Our kind can touch the flow of life, feel the minds of others, but in her, it is stronger, too strong." Raynor remembered the battle, the way the fighter's shots curved away, the impossible twist of light. "That's what she did back there," he said. "She bent the impossible." The mother nodded slowly. "Yes, she cannot control it, but if she learns, she could heal, she could unite, or she could destroy." Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the hum of the ship. Raynor's mind churned. The girl was not just a child. She was a symbol, a weapon, a hope. He turned back to the controls, his voice low. "No wonder they fear her." The mother's eyes hardened. "And now you understand why they will never stop. They will burn worlds to find her, and they will kill you for helping us." Raynor smirked bitterly. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried. But deep inside, his heart was heavier than he admitted. He had chosen to free them. But now he realized the full weight of that choice. It was not just 2 lives in his hands. It was the spark of something far greater. The girl stirred in her sleep, whispering softly, "Dad," and Raynor felt that spark ignite something in him, something he thought was long dead. The mother's voice softened, almost kind for the first time. "You don't have to be her father, you know. You can leave us when the chance comes." Raynor shook his head. "Maybe I don't have to be, but she already decided I am, and I won't break that." For a moment, silence turned warm, the mother watching him with a faint trace of respect. But then alarms blared, red lights flashing across the cabin. Raynor spun toward the sensors, his face tightening. The Empire had found them, ships closing in on their trail through hyperspace. The past had been revealed, but the future was already chasing them, faster than they could run. The warning lights flashed red, alarms rang through the cabin. Captain Raynor's hands flew across the controls, his voice sharp. "They found us." The alien mother pulled her daughter close, fear filling her tired eyes. The little girl, Lyra, clutched Raynor's arm, whispering, "Dad, don't let them take me." Outside the ship, the hyperspace tunnels shimmered with cracks, enemy ships tearing through the veil of light. The Empire's hunters had locked onto them, dragging them back into real space. With a violent shudder, the ship was pulled out of hyperspace, stars snapping back into focus, and there they were. A fleet of sleek warships spreading across the black void, their lights like red eyes watching their prey. Raynor cursed under his breath, scanning the enemy formation. "No outrunning them this time," he muttered, flipping switches to reroute power to shields. The mother's voice was tight, almost breaking. "They will not stop. They will burn worlds to get her." "Lear." A's small voice cut through the panic. "I don't want to go back in the cage, please." Raynor's jaw hardened. "You won't. Not while I'm breathing." He pulled the ship into a dive, weaving between enemy fire, blasts of plasma cutting across the dark. The shield sparked under the impact, the cabin rattling with every strike. But Raynor flew with the precision of a man who had cheated death more times than he could count. Still, he knew they couldn't fight a fleet. They needed somewhere to vanish. His eyes fell on the star map flickering across the console. A nearby planet filled the display. It was a smuggler's world, a place of shadows, lawless but alive. If they could hide there, maybe they could slip through the Empire's net. He slammed the thrusters, diving toward the planet's orbit. The hunters followed, beams of fire raining down like a storm. One strike tore across the ship's hull. Alarms screamed, sparks showered across the cabin. Raynor gritted his teeth, fighting the controls. "Hold together, old girl, just a little longer." The ship broke through the atmosphere, fire streaking across the sky as metal screamed under the heat. Below stretched a sprawling city, neon lights glowing through smoke and haze. Skyscrapers rose like jagged teeth, ships darting in every direction, a hive of chaos and survival. It was the perfect place to disappear if they lived long enough to land. Raynor cut the power to the transponder, sending the ship spinning into a crowded trade lane. The Empire ships broke formation, struggling to track them in the chaos of civilian traffic. One patrol craft fired, missing by inches and slamming into a freighter, the explosion lighting up the clouds. Raynor dove low, weaving between towers, alarms still wailing in his ears. Finally, with a sharp turn, he slid the ship into a hidden dock carved into the side of an abandoned factory. The hatch hissed open, smoke pouring from the damaged engines. Raynor grabbed his pistol, motioning for them to follow. "We don't have much time. Move." The mother pulled Lyra close, the child's eyes wide as she clung to Raynor's hand. They slipped into the city streets, neon signs flickering above, the air thick with the smell of oil, fire, and rain. Crowds of strange beings filled the alleys, merchants shouting, criminals watching with cold eyes. Here, no one cared who you were, only what you could pay. But Raynor knew the Empire's bounty would spread quickly, and trust was rare in such places. They found shelter in a rundown safe house owned by an old smuggler who owed Raynor a favor. The man squinted at Lyra, his voice gruff. "Word's already out. Empire put a price on you big enough to buy half this city." Raynor shoved him against the wall, pistol raised. "Then you won't betray us." The smuggler smirked nervously. "Not me, old friend, but others will try. You better keep moving." That night, the safe house shook as explosions thundered in the distance. The Empire's hunters were already searching, burning their way through districts to find their prey. Lyra curled against Raynor, whispering, "I'm scared, Dad." Raynor put a hand on her shoulder. "I know, but you're safe with me." The mother sat nearby, watching silently, her eyes heavy with guilt and fear. Finally, she spoke. "How long before you realize this is impossible? They will never stop. They will kill you for helping us." Raynor met her gaze, his voice steady. Then I'll make them bleed before they touch her. The next day, betrayal came. A group of local thugs stormed the safe house, greedy eyes shining at the thought of the Empire's reward. They kicked in the door, weapons raised, shouting for them to surrender. Lyra screamed, clutching Raynor's arm, her eyes glowing faintly in panic. Raynor moved fast, firing with deadly aim, dropping two of them before they could react. The mother grabbed Ito, fallen weapon, blasting back with surprising strength, but one thug snatched Lyra, dragging her toward the door. The child's voice echoed through the room. "Dad, help me!" Raynor's blood turned to fire. He lunged, slamming the thug against the wall. His fist crushed the man's mask. His pistol pressed to the skull. One shot ended it. He pulled Lyra into his arms, her tiny body shaking, her tears soaking into his jacket. "I'll never let them take you," he growled, his voice shaking with rage. The mother stared at him, her eyes wide with something new, not fear, but respect. "You fight like a man with nothing to lose," she whispered. Raynor looked down at Lyra, clinging to him like her life depended on it. "No," he said softly. "I fight like a man who finally has something to protect." Outside, the city burned as the Empire tightened its grip, but deep inside, Raynor knew surrender was no longer possible. They were hunted, they were cornered, yet they still had hope, and as long as hope remained, he would fight across every world to keep it alive. The city burned behind them, towers glowing like torches in the night sky. Captain Raynor led the alien mother and her daughter through the smoke-filled alleys, his pistol ready, his eyes sharp. The Empire had unleashed its hunters, soldiers patrolling every street, ships hovering above like vultures. Every shadow felt like danger, every sound a trap waiting to close. They could not run forever. Raynor knew that. The Empire's grip spread across worlds. No smuggler's den or safe house would protect them now. If they wanted freedom, if they wanted peace, they had to fight. And for the first time in years, Raynor decided he would not run, he would stand. The alien mother, her name Saris, stopped him as they ducked into an abandoned hangar. Her voice was tight, heavy with fear. "You can't win against them, Raynor. They are an empire. Their armies are endless." Raynor's eyes burned with fire. "I don't need to fight their armies, just the monsters who think they own everything." Saris shook her head, her voice almost breaking. "You will die for nothing." Raynor glanced at Lyra, clinging to his side, her eyes glowing faintly with power she could not control. "No," he said firmly, "not for nothing, for her." The hangar doors creaked open, and figures stepped from the shadows. Smugglers, rebels, and outlaws, drawn by old debts and older loyalties. One scarred pilot saluted Raynor with a crooked grin. "Heard you were causing trouble again. Thought we'd join the fun." Another, a mechanic with oil-stained hands, slapped his back. "You saved my skin once, now I pay it back." Raynor looked at them, a ragged band of misfits, not soldiers, but survivors. And yet, in their eyes burned the same fire, the same hatred for the Empire's chains. He nodded slowly, his voice hard. "Then we make our stand here, together." They worked through the night, patching ships, wiring weapons, preparing traps. The rebels loaded crates of stolen explosives. The smugglers readied fast craft for hit-and-run strikes. Saris whispered warnings, telling Raynor the Empire's fleet would arrive by dawn. Raynor only tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then by dawn, they will know we are not afraid." When the first Imperial ships broke through the clouds, the ground trembled. Sleek destroyers hovered above the city, dropping waves of soldiers into the streets. Their loudspeakers boomed, "Surrender the forbidden child, or this world burns." Lyra held Raynor's hand tighter, her small voice shaking. "They mean me, don't they?" Raynor knelt, gripping her shoulders. "Listen to me, Lyra. You are not forbidden. You are hope. Don't ever forget that." Her glowing eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, pressing her face into his chest. Saris placed a trembling hand on Raynor's arm, whispering, "Protect her, even if I fall." Raynor met her gaze, his voice steady. "I will." The battle began with fire. Rebel Shay PS burst from the hangar, guns blazing, slamming into Imperial craft. Explosions lit the sky, the city's towers shuddering from the shockwaves. On the ground, smugglers and outlaws unleashed ambushes, drawing soldiers into narrow alleys, traps detonating in bursts of flame. Raynor led the charge, his rifle glowing with each shot, cutting down soldiers as they pushed through the streets. He fought with the fury of a man who had lost everything and found something worth dying for. Around him, the rebels roared, each fighting for debts, for vengeance, or for freedom. But Raynor fought for Lyra, for the child clinging to hope. The Empire's forces pressed harder, their machines towering over the battlefield. One walker smashed through a building, its cannons tearing holes in the streets. Raynor shouted, leading a squad to plant explosives beneath its legs. The blast rocked the ground, the walker collapsing in fire, cheers echoing through the chaos. But the Empire was endless, wave after wave, their numbers drowning the defenders. Raynor's band grew thinner, their lines breaking, their guns running hot. Cerys fought at his side, her alien blade slicing through armored troops, her eyes blazing with defiance. Yet even she faltered. Her body weakened from years of chains. In the heart of the battle, Lyra cried out, her voice carrying above the roar. She stepped forward, her small hands glowing with light. The storm of weapons turned toward her, but before they fired, the glow spread, blinding, brilliant, washing across the battlefield like a sunrise. Soldiers froze, their weapons lowered, their eyes flickered with confusion. Raynor watched in awe as Lyra's power touched them, bending not their bodies but their minds. The rage in their faces softened, the hate dimmed, even the machines hesitated. Cerys gasped, her voice trembling. She is connecting to them. She is showing them her heart. Raynor stepped in front of her, shielding her even as the light spread further. His voice was fierce. That's enough, Lyra. You'll burn yourself out. But the girl shook her head, tears glowing on her cheeks. They need to know we are not enemies. The battlefield stilled, silence replacing fire. For one moment, an Empire's army hesitated, shaken by the touch of a child they were ordered to destroy. But high above, the flagship glowed with crimson light, the command refusing to bend. A voice thundered through the sky. Kill them all! Cannons fired, breaking the fragile peace. Raynor roared, pulling Lyra back, the rebels rising once more to fight. Explosions tore through the ground, buildings crumbled, the air filled with smoke and fire. Raynor's eyes blazed with fury. If they want a battle, then we give them one. He raised his rifle, charging into the storm. The rebels followed, their shouts shaking the night, and as Lyra clung to him, her glow still flickering, Raynor knew this was more than survival. This was the battle for freedom, and he would fight until the last breath. The battlefield was quiet at last, smoke rising like ghosts over broken towers. The Empire's flagship burned in the sky, its flaming wreckage drifting into the dark. The rebels cheered in the distance, their ragged voices filled with triumph. But Captain Raynor stood in silence, his rifle lowered, his chest heaving. Beside him, Cerys leaned on her blade, her body trembling with exhaustion. Her eyes searched the ruins as if waiting for another wave of soldiers. But none came. The enemy had been broken, their retreat echoing across the stars. At the center of it all, little Lyra stood, her glow dim but steady, her small frame trembling with both fear and pride. Raynor knelt before her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said softly. You showed them something even a war could not erase. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but I almost lost myself. I thought I would disappear in the light. Cerys moved. Closer, kneeling beside her daughter. You are stronger than you know, Lyra. You carry hope in a galaxy that has forgotten it. The rebels gathered, scarred and bloodied, yet their faces carried something new. It was not just survival anymore, it was belief. One pilot raised his fist, shouting, "For the girl! For freedom!" The others roared in agreement, their voices shaking the ruins like thunder. Raynor looked at them, then back at Lyra. He knew this was not the end of the war. The Empire was too vast, too ruthless, but something had changed. Something small but unshakable. A spark had been lit, and sparks could grow into fire. In the days that followed, the rebels rebuilt their shelters. They buried their dead with honor, and sang songs of victory under shattered skies. Messages spread through hidden channels, whispers of a child who made soldiers lower their weapons. Whispers of a human who defied an empire to protect her. Cerys sat by the fire one evening, watching Lyra sleep under a blanket of stars. Her eyes turned to Raynor, who sat nearby cleaning his weapon. You know what they will call her now, she said quietly. A symbol, a prophecy, maybe even a savior. Raynor shook his head, his voice low. She's just a child, and children need more than symbols. They need someone to hold them when they're afraid. Cerys studied him for a long moment, her face softening. You speak as if you have already accepted what she asked of you. Raynor glanced at Lyra, her tiny hand clutching the blanket even in sleep. I didn't accept it, he admitted. She gave it to me, and I can't throw it away. For the first time, Cerys smiled, a faint but genuine smile. You remind me of him, she whispered. Her father. He was stubborn too, always willing to fight the impossible. Raynor looked into the fire, the flames reflecting in his eyes. Then maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The next morning, the rebels gathered to plan their next steps. Some wanted to strike again, to spread the rebel iron while the Empire reeled. Others wanted to vanish, to hide and survive while they still could. But all of them turned to Raynor, waiting for his voice. He stood tall, his coat torn, his body scarred, but his voice was steady. "I'm no leader, I'm no hero. I'm just a man who couldn't ignore a child's whisper." He looked at them, each face lit by firelight, each carrying scars of survival. "But if a child can make soldiers stop fighting, then maybe we can too. Maybe this galaxy still has a chance." The rebels cheered, not because of his words, but because of his resolve. In that moment, they saw not just a man, but a cause worth following. Sarah stepped forward, placing her hand on Raynor's arm. "Whether you like it or not, they see you as a leader now." Raynor smirked bitterly. "Then let's lead them somewhere better." That night, as stars glittered over the ruined city, Lyra stirred awake. She rubbed her eyes, looking around until she found Raynor sitting by the fire. She walked to him quietly, her small feet padding against the broken ground. "Dad," she whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "Can I have a dad now, for real, not just pretend?" Raynor froze, the words sinking deeper than any wound. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting hers, wide and hopeful. He had seen soldiers die, he had seen planets burn, but nothing had ever undone him like those simple words. Saris watched silently from the shadows, her face unreadable, waiting for his answer. Raynor placed his rifle aside, lowering himself to one knee so he was eye level with Lyra. He rested his rough hand on her small shoulder, his voice low but steady. "You already have one, Lyra, and I will never leave you." Her eyes lit up, brighter than any star, and she threw her arms around him, whispering, "Thank you, Dad." Saris turned away, tears slipping down her cheeks, but for once they were not tears of sorrow. The fire crackled, the rebels sang in the distance, and for a moment the galaxy felt less broken. Raynor held Lyra close, his heart beating with a purpose he thought he had lost forever. The war was not over. The Empire would rise again, but now he was not just a soldier, he was a father, and with that, he had found a reason to fight for a new beginning.